Thank you for joining us today. We will be speaking about realizing value from AI agents in your business processes. I'm Matthew Schutt. I'm a product manager at Appian, and joining me will be Dylan Fulmer from 3E and James Lee from Appian. Picture a gleaming Formula One engine, a marvel of engineering, representing raw power, precision, cutting-edge technology. This is the AI model you've been hearing all about, the new one that shattered benchmarks and headlines. Now, this powerhouse isn't a race car. It's sitting idle in a garage, all at potential just for show. To unlock its true value, we need to put this AI engine where it belongs, in the right environment, connected to the right systems, integrated into a well-designed process. Only then can it unleash its true potential and drive the impact we desire. Now, picture this. This is what happens when that raw AI power is harnessed correctly, when it's not just an engine in a garage, but integrated into a finely tuned machine built for speed and performance. Every component is connected, working in harmony with a clear purpose. The AI knows its role, it's got the right guardrails, and it's firing on all cylinders as part of a larger system designed to win. This is the power of AI in process, and this is what's possible when you put AI to work in the right context, connected to the right systems with Appian. Now, what if we don't put that AI engine in the right place? We don't connect it to the right setup, we don't give it the right support or guardrails. This might be what happens. That incredible power becomes a lot harder to use, a lot harder to integrate. Instead of a finely tuned race car, the AI is stuck an equivalent of this old rusted car. Might have that potential under the hood, but it's not going anywhere fast. Real-world processes can be a lot like this old car, right? Legacy systems, messy data, disconnected workflows. Trying to just force that AI model into that environment, you're likely not going to see the results you want on the racetrack. Instead of forcing AI into an outdated process, Appian lets you seamlessly integrate it into your business platform. This is about putting AI to work where it's meant to be, right in the heart of your operations, connected to the right systems, and with the structure it truly needs to deliver. So a quick look ahead, I'm going to be speaking about AI in process. Then Dylan from 3E is going to come and talk about the impact of AI workflows at his company. And James Lee is going to talk about the future of AI agents with Agent Studio. So let's take a look at what it's like to build production AI systems manually. So maybe you've tried an AI model, maybe you've tried ChatGPT. You're really excited that potential seems to be really there. And you say, I want to get this across my enterprise. So what might that look like? I want to build a real app. You start to realize there's a lot of complexity. There's the entry points at the top. So maybe I want a chat experience for my users, or maybe I want something more automated. I'm going to call it as an API. Well, what's the next layer under that? Well, we have to do some orchestration. What data should it access? What's the access control for this particular model? How do I route these things? How do I handle the inputs and outputs? How do I handle any errors? And then we get to that third layer, execution, thinking about security, scalability, guardrails, compliance, logging, and giving it access to tools so that it can perform more than just a simple chat with the free text that you're going to give it. This is a huge pain. It's a large effort. It's a lot of complexity, and it slows your production AI. That's like building the Formula One car and the pit crew yourself. So this hinders getting value from that engine we spoke about. Now, building production AI systems with Appian, at the top, you can see Appian features. We have AI Copilot features that are the chat and component-based experiences, as well as AI agents that will fit into your workflow. So those are the Appian-enabled features you can use. And then everything under that, the orchestration and the execution layers, are handled by Appian. That's the security, scale, guardrails, compliance, logging, built in. So as developers, you can focus on the features you want to use, the experience you want to deliver for your business. So the benefit here is deliver AI value faster. There we go. So how does Appian do this? We empower mission-critical work with some of our AI investments to make sure that we are mission critical ready with scale, reliability, and trust. So scale first. This is high volumes. We've heard from customers that they really want, when you want to process documents and you want to process data, you want to know that this can scale to the amount of volumes that you might expect. So with our new capabilities, you can process hundreds of millions of pages a year. And in general, the performance that you can expect is 75 times more documents per hour. Reliability. We've made a number of investments here on high availability for Appian's HA SLAs, as well as resilience to failures with HA. And finally, Gen AI with autoscale. As you've heard in the main sessions today, with autoscale, Appian's continuing to make investments to scale even higher workloads, and Gen AI is now available in those processes. And finally, a foundation of trust and security and compliance. So you can see high trust, HIPAA certification, FedRAMP. All those capabilities allow you to leverage Appian AI in your enterprise settings. So it's scalable, reliable, and ready for secure for critical work. So how do we do this? How does Appian help? We provide a toolbox of pre-built AI agents. So you can see on here classification, extraction, summarization. These are ready to go. This is built on the low-code platform and with seamless data integration. So the benefit, you get access to these powerful common AI capabilities. Okay, so we have the tools. Now, how easy is it to use these tools, right? Simple, directly in the Appian's process modeler. So AI fits seamlessly into your existing workflows with standard nodes. This is our low, no-code approach. You don't have to be an AI PhD to drag and drop a node into your process. You can use the familiar designer here. And again, you're using those pre-built capabilities from the toolbox, or you can integrate and customize these things a bit more. So the benefit, making this accessible to all Appian developers. Okay, so it's easy to use them, but what kind of work can these integrated agents do for my business? Can you relate this to maybe business processes? So I like to think of this in 4 areas: collect, decide, automate, and analyze and perform. So collect, you can think of this as document processing. We've spoken a lot about this today. Gathering and preparing information, extracting, classifying. But decisions is another area that maybe doesn't get enough focus. It's smart routing, making recommendations. You can think in the past you might make a rule to do this in an Appian process that might go one way or another, but in dynamic environments, it's going to be a lot easier to ask AI to help me route a process. Automating with AI agents, augmenting RPA, and handling errors and escalations as part of automation. And then finally, analyzing and informing. This might be more familiar to you with things like ChatGPT, summarizing, audit, Q&A, and classifying. So this graphic, I like. It summarizes the core messages here, and it was up in the main session this morning, but the benefits of putting AI in process. There's multiple tenets here. I'm not going to go through all of them in full detail, but structure, the goal, the flow, the oversight, data with data fabric, and the governed access, so the AI is only accessing what it needs. Safety with guardrails, it's only being used when it's needed. Analytics to measure ROI. Scalability with the foundation I spoke about earlier. And it's easy to start with those pre-built nodes. So the result makes AI effective, secure, scalable, and measurable. So to recap, that AI engine, it eliminates a lot of that complexity you would have to deal with building these manually. And so Appian is going to manage those layers to make it easy for you to integrate this capability and ensure that this is enterprise ready. So AI in process will give you reliable value. So to transition from these theories that I've spoken about, I'd like to bring up Dylan now to talk about real proof with his impact. So please welcome up Dylan.
Great. Thanks, Matthew. So I'm Dylan Fulmer. I run our product management team for all of our internal applications and AI initiatives at 3E. A little bit about 3E before I start. It's a cool place to work. Our purpose is to make the world a safer place. So that's a mission that I can get behind, and I'm glad to be a part of the company. And how we do that is through our data assets, the services that we provide, the software that we provide to our customers. We're experts in global chemical substance regulations, supply chain, sustainability, product stewardship. So we harness all of our collective expertise to provide content, data, services to our customers so that they can operate in a more compliant, safer way, and make more money, but do it in a safer way. So that's where we come in. How we're using AI, our vision for using AI at 3E is fairly simple. One of the value propositions of using 3E is our expertise. We have PhD chemists, we have global regulatory experts, we have people who understand toxicology, all of the different expertise. And what I want to use AI for is to allow our experts to apply their expertise more consistently at greater scale. And so that's sort of the larger vision, the first bullet point. Like, we want to use AI to allow our experts to remain experts and not spend their time copying and pasting from one system and sending an email and all this other inefficient stuff that takes them out of applying their expertise. And the objective for that, the reason that we do that is so that we can deliver more, better, consistent quality data to our customers so that they can stay compliant, like I said before. And so the way that we're doing that is we're embedding AI components, features, tools into larger processes of how we do data collection, how we publish news, things like that, to allow for greater efficiency and again, the application of that greater expertise. And you see there's a quote here from our SVP of Content and Data Management. One of my partners that I work with, with the vision that we have and the tools that we have to make her team much more successful, more efficient, so that we can deliver more of the data for our customers. So I'm glad to have very willing partners in this journey that understand the value of what we're trying to do, and that it's not about replacing people. It's about allowing people, again, to apply their expertise more consistently and have them not do the things that they'd rather not be doing on a day-to-day basis. So the first example of that, we have, the next couple of slides is sort of just scratching the surface of how we've used AI within 3E and our larger vision. But this is sort of a more holistic, end-to-end flow that I'll be talking about. So we built an application for our news team to manage the editorial content and the workflows around news publishing. And as you can imagine, it's a fairly complex process. It involves multiple handoffs, a lot of data tagging, a lot of making sure that the information is accurate, has as much data associated with as possible, and whatnot. So what we're doing with news is, while we were building the application, we had several requirements that when we were working with our stakeholders, we were like, wait a second, we can use AI so that you don't have to do anything. It's not that you have an easier way of doing something. You don't have to do it at all. And an example of that is summarization. So for all of the news articles that we write, there is we have something that we write a 30-word summary of that news article that shows up in search results to contextualize the article so that people will have a better sense of what they're clicking into. And it's when you tell a news writer, okay, take the last 6 hours of your life in your work and summarize that into 30 words, it's kind of, challenging and maybe not the best use of, how they want to spend their time. So what we did was we used the Appian AI summarization skill to, look at the body of several different types of news articles and come up with a summary, a consistent summary that is useful, and we don't need to do that anymore. And that was a situation where it was the product owner on my team was working with the subject matter experts and refining the AI summarization skill. until we got to a good result. And now that's a straight through processing. We don't do any summarization anymore. Other things that we do to assist the news team in creating more and better content is the basis of lots of our news stories are leads from external sources, a publication, another news story, another publication, the announcement of a new regulation, et cetera, et cetera. And what we do is we take that original source material, and again, we're using Appian AI summarization skills to recommend a start of the article for them. And then they take that and they can edit it and make it sound like their own and add other relevant details, things like that. But they have a good starting point. I know for myself, starting writing something is often a challenge, and having a head start with that I can then work from is tremendously beneficial. The other thing that we do also is, so those are examples of Appian AI skills that we've brought to bear as part of this news content management system and the publishing process. We also have our own internal AI capabilities that we are also bringing to bear inside of this application as well. So I mentioned data tagging before. And so within the application, Appian calls an API that is basically the visual or the manifestation of an AI service that recommends the data to tag to an article based on the subject of the article or the contents of the article. So the news writer doesn't have to go and search for all of the different geographies, all the different topics, all the different jurisdictions, all the different regulations. They get presented to them. And they can say, yes, this one works, this one doesn't, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it does two things. It saves them time. They don't have to look for something. It's being presented to them and that they can validate. And the other thing is it gives them possibly perspectives on data that it recommends to tag that they would have never thought of on their own as well. That's another benefit that I've noticed with AI more broadly is it has the potential to give you perspectives that you wouldn't necessarily consider on your own. So again, it allows the news team to focus their time on writing these news articles. They don't have to worry about the summarizations, everything like that. And the impact is we have a much more efficient process. We're able to get content out very quickly. That is very robust with all the robust data tagging. And then we have a stronger set of metadata for all sorts of other downstream applications. So that's what we're using within our news application. And again, it's sort of very targeted applications of AI to do very specific things. It's not saying press a button and then go get everything and then write all the news and publish it. Like that's not what we're trying to do. We're not trying to automate everything. Again, we want our experts to be very critical parts of that process to validate, to create in a lot of cases, and to make sure that what we're actually putting out into the world is up to our standards as a company. Next, building off the news is our regulatory intelligence hub. And so what we're doing here, and this is a lot of the same types of data, we're dealing with complex global chemical regulations, OSHA, REACH, things like that, GHS. And so, when those documents come in or those documents get published, there's a lot of data and metadata that we want to extract from those documents that will allow for much more efficient processing, much more consistent curation of those data. So that's what we've started doing with the Regulatory Data Hub. And this initial phase of this project is, again, mostly taking very unstructured documents, extracting the relevant metadata from them, and then presenting all of that in an Appian interface where the subject matter experts can validate the data that's been extracted, they can edit it, they can make suggestions, things like that. And that is, again, saving tremendous amounts of time. We're anticipating saving over 2,000 hours a year of just not having to manually type in all of the data from these documents. And again, the sooner we get that data in, the sooner it can be made available to other sorts of downstream processes as well. So that's what we're doing for the Regulatory Intelligence Hub, but that sort of sets the stage for the next thing that we're going to be talking about, which has a lot more AI components to it. That's part of a larger sort of complex process. And that's a project that we're calling Brat Summer. And so we're all excited about that. And so it stands for our Business Regulations Automation Tool. So we like to have fun with our project names. It gets people, it's work, so we can have a little fun. So what we're doing here is we are building off what we've already built for the Regulatory Intelligence Hub and making that a tool for our regulatory experts to do a few things. Basically what happens now is our regulatory experts, when a new regulation comes in, they have to do a manual analysis of everything. They write up a document that says, here's our analysis, and they send it to all the different product managers for all of our content products, say, this is what we think, do you guys want it? And it's mostly yes, and then they're like, well, we want it this way, we want this change, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody wants their stuff a little bit differently. And so what happens is that the regulatory experts need to write different specifications for different products. But it's all about the same data. So we saw a big opportunity here for, again, building off that Regulatory Intelligence Hub. We already have the regulatory document itself, and we're extracting all the metadata and the text of the document itself. That then becomes the basis for our expert team to start doing their analysis within the tool and have lots of downstream workflows that benefit from that. So the other thing that will happen also is the experts don't need to worry about product-specific syntax. And that's really a big deal, because like I said, they're currently writing specifications for 3 or 4 different downstream products that are about the same data. And they're doing that because all those products have different syntax in terms of how they need to sort of represent those data. That's not a good use for their time. They have to know all these, the updates to all the syntax for all these products. So what we're doing is we're saying, all right, we're gonna give you tooling to do the analysis based on the extracted data that we have. That analysis itself is going to provide better insight to all those product managers. So it's not a question of, here's what we think, do you want it? It's more of a, here's what we know about this, and here's why you do want it. And then from there, once they accept that, we press a button and it generates the documents for all of these different product-specific specifications. Also generates JIRA tickets. So it's a situation where we are integrating with, we already have an existing integration with JIRA. So taking the AI skills or the AI services that know all of the product-specific syntax, combine that with the base regulatory data itself, and then we can produce any number of document formats, any number of different types of artifacts in JIRA. And that's what we're going to be doing. And it's going to save so much time. We're going to be getting so much more consistent delivery of data as well. Because it's not a question of like going to every different product team and saying, do you want this? It's being presented to them. Again, that's another sort of paradigm that we're trying to push here, is that people don't need to be asked questions or find things. Things are being presented to them when they need to have access to them. And so that's really the idea, and it really sets the stage for a new paradigm of how that team works. Because the other thing that we're going to be setting up is, in terms of the extraction of the regulatory data, how the initial analysis gets done, we're going to be setting up ways for the regulatory expert team to write their own prompts to represent how they want these things to be treated. And so that, we're using this as an opportunity to get the team and the larger team into a more AI-first way of working, where they're defining prompts, they're defining the data that they need access to, things, all the things that you saw in the Agent Studio. That's what we're trying to get to. And so those are sort of 3 projects that all deal with the regulatory data and the way that we interpret that, whether we publish news about it, whether we write specifications for inclusion of those data into our products, we're looking at this as a larger sort of landscape of data and processes to manage those data. And again, the larger paradigm itself is that we don't have to remember syntax, and we don't have to remember all the different iterations of things that need to happen. And using AI and then also using other components of Appian, in this case, we're going to be using Case Management Studio to inform all the workflows around this as well. So AI is part of that larger process that we're talking about, that, and we're using specific applications for it along the process. We're not trying to automate the entire thing. We're, again, trying to allow our experts to spend more time being experts. And so how this fits in, more broadly, it's great that, I've been an Appian customer for a long time, and the sort of rhythm that I've seen for, the work that I need to do to, enable my customers, the internal employees at 3 and whatnot, everything that we need, or not everything that we need, a lot of what we need is often announced at the conference. So a lot of the things that I wanted to do in this realm in general, we're going to be able to do with AI Agent Studio, or with Agent Studio. We're going to be able to do with Case Management Studio, things like that. So I'm really excited about the future that we have using targeted AI at specific parts of the process, and having that be part of a larger ecosystem of agentic workflow that can do assessments of things, can do automated assignments of things, based on data that is extracted, as assess that data and assign it appropriately, things like that. And again, what my vision is that I don't want our teams to need to know syntax, to need to know how to write a SQL query or how to write a whatever. I want them to be able to express in plain language how they want the world to work. And then we set up the tooling with different Appian processes and AI capabilities and agents or whatever to go and make the world operate the way that they've specified. So that's the larger vision. I'm really excited to be part of it. We're already realizing a lot of value with this, and there's a lot of excitement and a lot of interest in how much further that we can go. And again, we're trying to maximize our expertise because that is our differentiator in the market, is our expertise, and we want to continue to apply that for maximum benefit to our customers. And with that, that's all I have for today in terms of presentation. So I'll hand it off to James, and he can take us home. Talk about some new capabilities. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Dylan. Yep. All right, thank you so much, Dylan. I think I speak for the rest of the audience that we can't wait to hear about Brad's summer at Appian World 2026. So make sure to come back and we can see how Dylan did with that. So the future is now, as Dylan was mentioning, he's very interested in some of the agentic AI capabilities in Agent Studio that hopefully everyone got a chance to see in the keynote plenary yesterday. And that's what I'm here to talk about. But I think it's important to start with setting some context, because this term AI agents, vendors are having a field day with it, right? It could describe just about anything you could possibly imagine that has an inkling of AI in it, right? So what's Appian's definition? I think it's important you at least understand that. So the simplest way I could say it is AI agents are AI that takes action autonomously. If I use more words, the ones you see on screen, AI agents use knowledge, actions, and work with people to accomplish tasks autonomously. So this begs the question, how is this different from every permutation of AI? Well, I think the key element is in two parts. One is, what does AI use to get those tasks done? As you can see, it can combine things like knowledge, policies, documents, data fabric. It can take actions. It can use your business rules. It can integrate with other systems. It can call Appian processes, which for practitioners in the audience, you know how powerful that can be. And other types of automations that processes can call, like RPA, other types of specialized AI, et cetera. And it can work with people. It can send people emails, chat people. You can escalate to supervisors. Again, all these types of things you can govern through process. So that's all great, but then the other key element is autonomously. And what that means to Appian is that a human element is not required for the AI to begin work. So what does that mean? It means that I don't have to belly up to a chat interface and talk to the agent for it to start doing things for me. It starts doing things on my behalf by the nature of it being inside of a process. So let's talk about that relationship between agents and process, because it's really important. I think if you listen to some vendors, you might think that these are the same thing, that agents are becoming process, they're taking over process, and these are just going to be consolidated concepts, right? Not the case. Agents have a particular value to them. They handle variance. They handle situations that is too cumbersome to model in process. Too cumbersome either A, because the rules are too complex, and it doesn't make sense to codify all the different permutations that the rules might go through, or B, the rules change too frequently or dynamically based on the case. Maybe the rules differ based on the customer, or maybe the regulations frequently change. Those are places where it's very difficult to accommodate with process. Agents offer a compelling solution to keep those in the sphere of automation. But agents are inherently variant. They're supposed to be. That's why they're valuable. They handle variance. They use knowledge. That doesn't afford you the control you need in highly regulated spaces. You don't want an agent coming up with how to release a new drug. It's just not something that's going to end up well for your pharmaceutical organization, and you can think about the parallel processes in your organizations. That's where process is helpful. Process affords control. It allows you to deterministically structure, this is the sequence of actions, this is how they flow. And so it's important when you're thinking about process is what parts of the process need to flow a certain way, need to go in this sequence of steps. It could be all the steps, need to go a very specific way. And what parts of the process have a high degree of variance, where it's very difficult to model what the sequence should be. At those elements of the process, an agent is helpful to put inside of the process. And so what this ends up bearing out is a spectrum of autonomy. This is kind of another way of visualizing what you saw from Jake Rank, talking about those stages of AI maturity. On the left-hand side, you have rules-based. You have this idea of that strictly structured, governed, audited process. And as Jake mentioned, you all have been getting tons of value out of rules-based processes. By determining what the rules are, using automations, using integrations, this is great automation. Then you get into the ideas of maybe AI is assisting a person. Maybe it's doing a lot of work on its own, but it's still in the structure of a process that's governing where it sits overall. And on the far end of the spectrum, you get into this kind of multi-agent system. And this is where there's a high degree of variance, and AI is passing tasks between itself in all types of ways. There's a high degree of uncertainty exactly what route we'll take, but that's valuable in some use cases. You can think about things like project management. I don't know what the process is going to be for any project. That's very, very all over the place, right? You almost don't even think of it as a process because it's so disorganized, right? An industry relevant one might be pharmacovigilance. This idea of you put a new drug in market, how's it doing? Are people liking it? Are they getting sick from it? Based on that information, what am I going to do with that? These are so variant that you don't know if you could even model the process to begin with. Agents are helpful there, but again, I think you'll find that most processes aren't like that. A lot of processes are more in the middle, where there's a lot of structure and there's pockets of variance. Now, Appian's been capable of automating this entire spectrum for years. And the reason why I say that is because I built applications across the spectrum myself. But the important thing I know as a developer is that as you get further along the spectrum, the developer has to do a lot more work to make the AI and the tools work together. You have to start saying, how does the LLM output interface with a query or an integration? How does it route a process? You as a developer set up all that structure and scaffolding. What Agent Studio does is something that Appian's always done, is we take something that you can do, that maybe you're already doing, and we make it more elegant. We make it easier to use. We provide you a lot of the tooling you ought to have built anyways, and we integrate it right in the rest of our process platform. And so that's what Agent Studio is. Agent Studio is a new workspace for creating these much more autonomous agents that you can complement with the rest of your automation strategy inside of Appian Process. It gives you a workspace to define guidance, set a goal for your agent, provide inputs and outputs so that I can get context about your process and return information back to a process in which it's called from. And tools like rules, policies, data fabric, processes, things it can use to get its job done. But it provides more than that. It provides the ability to set up test cases and run evaluations to make sure it's performing as expected before you go to production. You can monitor every single agent interaction, every step it takes, all of its reasoning for transparent auditability. And those are stored as events that can be natively pulled into Appian Process HQ for intelligence across long timescales. And so what's Appian's differentiation? Because everyone says they have agents. Appian provides the best tools. Appian has data fabric, has an industry-leading process engine, rules, and you know how well it integrates with the user experience. Those are all available to agents inside of Appian, and it couldn't be easier to give these tools to an agent because you're building them anyways. You've already built a data fabric for your application. You've already built processes for your application. You do not need to do some kind of Python code generator or some kind of virtual machine to book yourself a table. It's already in your application, and you can already provide it to an agent. And the transparency is key. We were introduced to agents through generative AI. And we were introduced to generative AI through chat. And chat makes us think that agents must be interacted through human connection, attended interactions. But the problem with that is not only that it limits the efficacy of the agent, when it can be deployed, when it can be used, but a lot of times those interactions are localized to that chat. So you can't know exactly what happened. Only the person does, because they did the interaction. And so you have no auditability why decisions are made or why things are done. It's lost context that you can't go back and reflect on. Appian takes a different approach. Appian clearly articulates every single thing the agent does. But not only what it does, why it does it. And that is clearly listed out in event structures that can be looked at a case-by-case level or analyzed in aggregate for process intelligence at the agent level and at the process level where the agent's called from. And so when I was thinking, because I've been working with the Appian agents for quite some time, as we're preparing to launch Agent Studio, one of the critical questions I wanted to answer for y'all is, what are the use cases for AI agents? And what I came across were use cases that were not unfamiliar. I think as you look at the use cases on the screen, these might describe things you're doing with Appian already, or things you know that Appian does a good job with. So what's the agent advantage? How do agents transform these use cases? The important thing to realize about these use cases is that while Appian is providing a ton of value with them, by providing structure, governance, auditability, a user experience, a system integration, automations to accomplish this, there's a high degree of human interaction to accomplish any of these workloads. Humans are embedded throughout the process to update, set statuses, send notes. The case workspace provides them a great advantage over doing it in email or any other solution. Provides you a great amount of flexibility to grow with the business. But that human element adds cost. Costs that we often look to automation to improve efficiency. And so whether it's case management, claims intake, procurement, these are places where AI agents can provide differentiated value by targeting those places of high degree of variance and providing a solution to automate them when we thought there was no means to do it due to the complexity. And so what's the value? I think the value can feel obvious at first, but I'll go through it anyways. Efficiency and cost reduction. This is a core tenet of automation. If you can do it through automation, it'll get done faster and for less expense to the business. And the core thing as well is just because something is complex doesn't mean it's not tedious. It doesn't mean that this is high value, high cognitive work that someone's doing. It's just work that's elusive to rules and RPA and IDP. It's something that can't be solved that way, but that doesn't mean the person loves doing it. But it's not just about the efficiency of it, it's the improvement in the efficacy, improved decisions. What that means is some of these use cases involve copious amounts of documentation. You might be reading hundreds of pages of policies. The policy might change for each customer. And a person's combing through this to make decisions on a case-by-case basis. This is exhausting work. Agents are great at looking at that large corpus of information, combining that context to automate those results and improve the decision-making. And my favorite one is that they're always available and ready to be scaled. We might have heard earlier in the year about fires in California, or late last year, hurricanes going on in the East Coast. This is a disastrous situation for people. This involves them sending a surge of claims in need to get assistance for their property or for themselves. But human resource can't scale to those types of circumstances. You can't just spin up new claims analysts to get that response back. So now you have a process bottleneck. And now, in the worst moment of people's lives, 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, they are not getting a response. And that impacts the relationship with your business. That impacts their quality of life, and it's something worth fixing. Agents are different. If you need more, you scale them up, just like any other computer-based resource. And it can be critical in some of those first touch points with external parties to let them know you're looking into it and helping them with their claim. And so if you're interested in learning more about what agents can do for you, I definitely encourage you to use the QR code to sign up for our Agent Studio beta program. So you can get access to Agent Studio, and you can see how this high autonomy agents can provide differentiated value to your business processes. And with that, that's everything I had to share. So I'm going to invite Matt and Dylan back on stage with me, and we're going to answer any questions you put into the app. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. I think we'll have time for a few questions, and for the ones that we don't, we'll get in touch with any answers for the questions that we don't get to. The first question, Dylan, do you have a human review the output from AI agents, that 30-word summary and metadata extraction? If not, what did you do to trust that output?
So yeah, that was a situation where we spent a lot of time upfront training the skill to get to a point where we felt confident in the ability to produce that every time. And it's really a situation where, for the summary specifically, good enough is good enough. And that's why we don't, we still have, a person could edit that if they wanted to, but it's always good enough, so they don't need to. So.
Great. Thank you. The next question, I think James or I could probably take this one, but who recommends the options and builds the AI into my process? Is this Appian experts, or do you train my organization's IT team to do it?
I'm happy to take a stab at it.
Yeah.
So of course, there's lots of ways to go about getting expert delivery for Appian applications. You can work with our customer success teams, partners. You might even have your own Appian developers within your IT. But I will say one fundamental thing with Appian is we're trying to minimize the burden on IT competency. And what I mean by that is sometimes IT is forced to use a plethora of tools to accomplish one solution, and that complicates so many things in total cost of operation. How do you actually complete an integrated solution with limited IT resources, and they're always limited and they'll always be limited. So Appian doesn't want to make IT's life harder, we want to make it easier. And so when we build things like Agent Studio, you'll look there and you didn't see a single line of expression or code or anything. Because we don't want to make it hard, we want to make it as easy and elegant as possible to bring agents into your process. And that's important to us.
Great. Thank you, James. Next question is, I've heard of AI operators versus AI agents. How would you define the differences? My understanding of AI operators is kind of a term coined by ChatGPT and Claude for AI taking action in a browser. So you could ask it, hey, can you make a reservation for me at a brewery near the Gaylord in Denver, and it would look that up and it would navigate that web page for you and do the browser. This is similar to if you've heard of our agentic AI RPA capability, but that would automate not just browser, that would automate any desktop application as well. The difference there versus some of the agents that James has spoken about is agents would take multiple steps with tools, but it wouldn't be necessarily controlling a screen or a UI.
Right. But it's not to say that it couldn't by calling RPA.
Yep.
So that's the flexibility of process, is you can combine these technologies simply.
Great. And I think that's going to be all the time we're going to have for questions today. Thank you so much for your time.